If you're looking for Week 7 tight end rankings, you are in the right place. We're going to walk you through our ranks tiers right now. Kicking it off with a bumper S tier this week, Tom. Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, and George Kittle. This is the biggest this tier has been at any point this season. How welcome is the return of George Kittle?
Well, it's definitely welcome. How productive he's going to be against this Atlanta Falcons defense, who will have the fewest fantasy points to opponents' tight ends, is another question entirely. Like, the usage, we have to expect it to be massive, particularly if Brock Purdy's out there. We know that he is going to funnel things towards George Kittle. The Falcons' defense has been excellent across the board all year. Like, they rank first in yards per attempt allowed, which is really impressive considering that they've just come off a game against the Bills. The Bills did very little against them. They've been brilliant. They ranked top 5 in pass defense EPA allowed. But George Kittle's George Kittle, and I'm never going to talk myself too much out of George Kittle, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, even with some nervousness that his first game back rust, even that there's, high probability of re-injury with a hamstring injury, you've got him on a roster, you've got to plug and play him. One player who has turned into a plug and play option, Tyler Warren. Tom, he's been phenomenal. I was asked in a DM, rest of season, is Tyler Warren your tight end one? And my immediate reaction was, no, it's Trey McBride. And then I had to think about it. I was like, maybe it could be Tyler Warren. I need to go and have a look. Would Tyler Warren be your tight end one rest of season? And is it mad that it's already a conversation through 6 weeks of his career?
He wouldn't be for me, actually. And I'm not quite there. I mean, the 30% target share that he's hit twice now is incredibly impressive. I think Brock Bowers it was like week 11 of his rookie season before he managed to do that twice according to fantasy points. And what Warren's done has been fantastic. He's hit the ground running. He's become a reliable top 5 and an S-tier player for us every single week. That's absolutely true. But going up against the Chargers, it's not necessarily an easy one. So I think there are still going to be weeks where his target share looks pretty good because the Colts passing offense, it's not condensed in the same way as like a team like the Rams, but it's still, we know where it's going and we know that Tyler Warren's going to be involved, but it hasn't been insane fantasy volume. Like what we saw from Brock Bowers last year when he was going out towards the end of the season and just absolutely destroying was 100-yard games constantly. And we haven't really quite seen that from Tyler Warren yet. And obviously the season's young, so I'm not saying that he can't do it, but he's had games with like 11.9 PPR points, 6.8 PPR points, those games which are just like, okay, that's kind of fine at the tight end position. But he's yet to crack 20 points, which, last week we saw Dallas Goedert go out and score 20 points. We saw Trey McBride go out and score 20 points. We've seen Sam Laporta in week 5 score 20 points, for example. I mean, in week 5 alone, there were 4 different tight ends who scored 20 points. It's like, to really get those weeks where you separate and become an elite fantasy asset at the tight end position, you need to be scoring 20 plus points. I mean, that's something that Mark Andrews did in week 3. He scored 27 points, and then Hunter Henry hit 29 points that week. So I really like Tyler Warren. I really believe in him, but the volume that Trey McBride has had over the last few years is still just a little too hard for me to turn down. And look, I'm a Tucker Kraft slappy, and I'll continue to be a Tucker Kraft slappy for a while yet before I quite lean towards Warren over him.
Yeah, I think, look, what Tyler Warren has done has been incredible. We're 6 weeks into his NFL career, and we said he's a top 5 tight end for us every single week. The one concern I have is that whilst manufactured touches are great, and I'm the person that talks about them as a really thing, they're also, not incredible when they're your healthy diet. Sweets and savory and puddings are great. Yeah, exactly. And I think that for me to feel like Tyler Warren can be that tight end one rest of season, I need to see him more as a functional part of the natural offense rather than a heavy diet of manufactured touches. And the manufactured touches maybe can be the kind of little nice sweet bit at the end rather than the main part of his diet. So, yeah, I really love the player. I'm really excited about what he can be, but I just want to see a little bit more. One player who has shown us plenty, though, Dallas Goedert, obviously missed one game, yet is still the tight end 4, averaging 15.7 fantasy points a game. Hasn't been below 10 points in any week. And scored 5 touchdowns in 5 games. Tom, can this keep up? He's seen 20 targets across the last 2 weeks, or are we expecting some regression and maybe Dallas Goedert's the bottom's going to fall out?
I think it's worth considering that this offense this year had a change in offensive coordinator, and that's brought about this role for Dallas Goedert, which is, like, quite frankly, one of the best roles in fantasy football right now. 21% target share this year, which is third amongst all tight ends. 23% first read target share, which ranks fifth. 8.7 yards average depth of target, so from fantasy points data. And most importantly, when the Eagles get down inside the 5-yard line, this isn't Saquon Barkley who's getting these touchdowns. It's not Jalen Hurts all the time. It's Dallas Goedert who's got 4 of his 5 touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. Like, that's really crazy. And for an offense where Jalen Hurts just isn't throwing between 10 to 19 yards at all, like, it's wild that Dallas Goedert has developed into this kind of crazy fantasy asset. I think that against the Vikings this weekend, there's no reason to be afraid of them. They rank 14th against the tight end position in terms of fantasy points allowed. And yeah, until we see otherwise, I'm completely willing to call Dallas Goedert a top 7, top 8 tight end who you'll start every single week.
Yeah, so look, he's running incredibly pure. The volume over the last 2 weeks, I don't think is particularly sustainable, but at some point, there's not that many options that you'd rather have over him right now. And yeah, there's probably going to be some regression in the touchdown mark. I don't expect him to score 15 touchdowns this year, but I expect him to keep being, as you said, a top 8 tight end rest of the season. So yeah, you kind of got to expect it to maybe regress slightly, but at least keep up a little bit. Before we dive into the B tier, though, if you are finding this for the first time, hit that subscribe button. You're obviously enjoying what you're seeing, and it helps us out no end. In the B tier, we have got Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, and Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice is back this week. Are you expecting that to ding Travis Kelce significantly, as we saw at the beginning of last year?
Well, the big difference is that last year, Travis Kelce just wasn't playing well, was he? Like, he looked really poor. And this year, it seems like he spent the offseason preparing for the final farewell and preparing for the revenge tour or whatever. And Travis Kelce looks better than he did. So if Travis Kelce can keep that going, maybe it's a case that he'll be okay. It does start to get a bit congested across the middle of the field. But Travis Kelce's success rate this year is up to 73%, which would be a career high. His yards per reception is up to 11.5. Last year, it was down at a career low 8.5. He's seeing slightly less volume than we used to, but he's making it work. He's still above the amount of yards per game he was last year. Last year, he was at 51.4. This year, he's up to 53.5. So there's enough to hang your hat on and to say Travis Kelce seems to be doing an okay job, that I'm all right with it. This game against the Raiders isn't necessarily a good one. They've been pretty good against the tight end position this year. They've allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points, but Travis Kelce loves divisional matchups, and I have to believe that he'll be very much up for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say on your point, I think Travis Kelce looks healthier. I think he looks faster. Yeah. I think he looks more agile than he did last year. So yeah, hopefully he can keep some sort of production and not just completely fall off a cliff with Rashee Rice returning. Into the C tier, though, headlined by Harold Fannin, Carl Pitts, Cade Otton, and Zach Ertz. Harold Fannin, no David Njoku, it looks like this week. Tom, I wanted to get him higher. I wanted to get him into the B tier, but I just couldn't quite justify it. Do you feel like there's some upside there? I mean, you've got him ranked as your tight end 16 currently this week.
Yeah, and I think part of that was kind of waiting for the first couple of practice reports to see what happened with David Njoku and his hamstring, whether we definitely got confirmation that he was out. Like, if David Njoku can't play, then I would probably be willing to bump him up to even with Travis Kelce in the B tier. I know that doesn't really affect much, but against Miami, like, we want to start everyone against Miami. Miami absolutely stink. And even when it comes to the Browns, it's worth starting players. And it's worth mentioning Dylan Gabriel hasn't had a home game yet. He played on the road in his first game. Then he was in London. He's like all this kind of stuff. Now getting to play Miami in Cleveland, and the Miami defense that ranks 31st in pass defense EPA has given up the 6th most fantasy points to the tight end position. And Dylan Gabriel has absolutely locked in on the tight end position. I think that the wide receivers have become a nightmare. But over the last 2 weeks, it's been David Njoku and Harold Fannin who've accounted for 20 receptions, 189 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, in that spell, all Browns wide receivers are combined for 16 receptions, 153 yards. Like, the Titans are much easier start than the wide receivers.
Yeah, and any questions, start, sit, trade, whatever you want answered, get them in the comments below. Tom and I will answer all of those. In the D tier, we have got TJ Hockenson, Michael Mayer, Mason Taylor, and Evan Ingram. Tom, I have been such a believer of Michael Mayer, and I've been telling people to hold him in Dynasty leagues and wait for when he can be a free agent and be released. We see no Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer on the field, and he absolutely produced last week. Your confidence level in him potentially repeating that this week?
Well, it's a tough matchup against the Chiefs. Going into Kansas City is not something that a lot of teams do well. Per Data Roma, one of the best followers on Twitter, he scalped this from Fantasy Points Data. Michael Mayer, among 71 tight ends with a minimum 25 routes run, he ranks first in first downs per route run at 15%. He's tied for first in targets per route run and 5th in yards per route run. So, like, Michael Mayer is thriving with the opportunities he's been given. But the Chiefs, they have a good defense, and I don't think that that's the way the Raiders are going to succeed this week. It's much easier to run on the Raiders than it is to pass on them.
Yeah, and Mason Taylor, obviously 2 weeks ago, phenomenal volume. The Jets' passing offense was pretty poor last week, and Mason Taylor struggled as a result. Do you feel that hopefully we're going to see a potential bounce back for Mason Taylor, looking like he may be the only pass catcher that is healthy, with potentially Garrett Wilson and Josh Reynolds not playing?
Yeah, look, if Garrett Wilson's not out there, then it's too hard not to get excited for Mason Taylor, because he's had those 25 targets in his last 4 games. Outside of Garrett Wilson, nobody has cracked even 10 amongst the wide receivers and tight ends. And the Panthers, they'll have the second most fantasy points to tight ends. We've given a touchdown to the position in 3 straight games. It just feels like if you're struggling at the tight end position, or if you've lost Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews at the tight end position due to bye weeks, then I'd be very willing to start Mason Taylor. Like, I legitimately think that Mason Taylor is set for a breakout, and he just needs more consistent QB play, or at least just consistent volume. And the Panthers, I don't think, are going to threaten that in any way. And I think that there'll be enough garbage time. And we've seen plenty of Justin Fields garbage time lately. It can be very productive for fantasy.
100%. And then rounding it out with the E tier, we've got AJ Barner, Theo Johnson, and Jawan Johnson. If you are about to hit that X in the top right corner, stop, wait, check out these other videos that we've released earlier this week and help you get those lineups set.